for me is one of the big matchups that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on, because after Jojo had an amazing performance yesterday, going up against what seems to be playoff form Caps, we're guaranteed a banger mid lane matchup. So let's see what the priority is, and already Taliyah and Yone are going to be taken away from that mid pool.
And I'm curious if the Azir is going to follow up in the mid pool as well. It's kind of been something that started to creep up, and there it goes as well. So now the Vi, the Varus, these are the other two big picks we look at on that first rotation.
Also that Rumble.
True.
We know that Myrwn is happy to play the Rumble, and we're yet to see it come through from Broken Blade. G2 in their last series was quite happy to let it through, and they ended up falling short in their very first game against Fnatic to Oscar Renan's Rumble as well.
But I think it is kind of like a game of chicken, because you're looking at both Myrwn and Broken Blade have that Galio in the back pocket, and it's worked out fantastically both times we've seen it for them. So I'm curious if we actually just see the Rumble fall to the wayside and the priority go towards something like the Varus over that pick here.
Unless you can pick it on something like the third pick on red side and then ban out the Galio coming into it, right? Would make sense that the Pantheon immediately locked in for MKOI also spells a possible Ahri pick for them. That combination very powerful overall, and as you said, Vedi, like with how Jojo played yesterday, exceptional from him to outplay Carmine Corp. And as much as I said coming into this series that both these teams were seen as the underdogs in their individual series, I think coming out of those series, they were the better teams. These are the two teams that played better over Saturday and Sunday.
So I thought we were going to get the Xin Zhao and the Varus on the counter pick here, or the other pick here for G2. Just I think the Xin Zhao has been SkewMond's best champion for him. He's been very aggressive, been able to play for invades off the champion's early stats. Going for the Senna, I mean, the Xin Zhao still works here, and honestly, you're setting up for a heavy bruiser style build that just does well with all those heals and shields over the top.
I think locking in this bot lane is something we saw from them in their series versus Fnatic, and prioritizing the Senna early on in the series, we've already started to see how impactful the champion can be. Not only does it have a very good laning phase into many of the strong AD carries in the current meta, but she's very safe, and she just provides this guaranteed late game, given that no matter how far things fall behind, her ability to carry is always ever present.
Yeah, I think it does open up, though, for kind of scaling lanes is the only thing when you do end up picking a blind, and it looks like MKOI agreeing with this, taking the Smolder here, which I imagine will go down towards Supa on the bottom side, and Senna's just not something that will bully particularly hard. You'll be able to farm up perfectly fine, and even rotate around the map as you need to. So I think for MKOI now, it seems like just going for a bit of a scaling team fight seems to be the name of the game.
Yeah, seems like where they're going, picking up that Smolder and the Rell alongside, just give it a bit of protection down towards that bottom side. Where will G2 decide to go? Importantly, no mid laners picked yet, so that Pantheon Ahri combination can be denied by G2. Obviously, there's a possibility that the Smolder is flexed towards that mid lane, but we'll see where G2 decide to go with that second set of bans. Looks like it's going to be the Wukong locked in instead of that Shin. Does fill a similar role.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you see the Smolder, you kind of know that MKOI aren't going to be going for anything particularly aggressive in the early stages. Obviously, Pantheon kind of wants to, but I do think you're in a position now where you can just look for those level 6, try and play for these big team fights, and use the fact you've got this Senna to enable Wukong in a lot of places. But you just have to be a little bit careful. Rell obviously having the Shattering Strikes to remove a lot of those shields can dissuade a lot of that early pressure.
I think G2's plan is going to be to ban out AP topsides, because in the event that this Smolder is going mid, the fact that they've locked in Wukong, armor stacking possibilities, then you also deny those AP options away from top. Perhaps you can force KOI to move the Smolder towards the bot side of the map. So taking away the Rumble, I think, makes a lot of sense. I wonder if they will even... Are they concerned about a Galio? Maybe even an Aurora would be considered in terms of bans. We've seen it a number of times from Myrwn. Silas, I think, is perfectly fine. But just this idea of removing some of these flexible AP mids that can go towards the top side of the map in the event that this Smolder is in fact in the mid lane.
I'm curious if they're trying to set up for an Ahri pick here for Caps as well. I think Ahri, alongside the Taliyah, have kind of been the big standout performers for Jojo. Even yesterday, he had an insane performance on that Ahri as well. Those charms seemed like they're point and click. So I think taking this here with the Silas ban could make a lot of sense. And then you end up leaving that counter pick for Broken Blade on the last rotation.
It also looks like KOI is thinking about an Ambessa with both the Warwick and the Jax taken away. Right now, there's a bit of a cheeky hover of the Veigar, but as discussed,
good
the Ahri definitely seems to be coming through. A bit of a denial away from Jojo, if that is something that they were thinking about. So what direction do you really go? Prioritizing the Pantheon, you would expect something like an Ahri to come alongside it. Something that Medic was saying earlier was just how that combination is very powerful in the mid-jungle 2 versus 2. So now what options do you go for with that Ahri unavailable and the Silas taken away?
Well, you might be getting your Ambessa, Vedi, so it looks like that'll be it. I think a Ryze could also be an option here. It's like you get that point and click CC to set up for the Pantheon. You've got the Realm Warp for that movement around the map. And Jojo, again, like the Realm Warp usage mid-fight yesterday was fantastic for him. So I think this could work out relatively well.
Wouldn't be surprised if we do see that Ryze locked in. I'd be incredibly surprised if it's Katarina. There we go. The Ryze is locked for MKOI. So they have a little bit of magic damage coming out from mid. Now we know the top lane matchup for G2. Immediate lock of the Camille into the Ambessa for Broken Blade.
So we did actually see this matchup come through before. It was Broken Blade playing the Ambessa, from what I remember, on the Saturday matchup. And in that matchup, we saw the Camille being able to get the advantage early on, but then later on, I mean, a lot of ganks were invested toward the top side of the map from SkewMond to really put that Camille down. And something that Finn was discussing extensively was that when you have a Camille into Ambessa lane, you really need to be giving resources to this Camille to set her up for success. So in this early game plan, I'm expecting G2 to leave their bot lane isolated and start playing towards this top side of the map.
It is a little tough though when you've got the Wukong, because traditionally Wukong kind of wants the level 6. Now he's still decent in the early skirmishes, but if you just look at the CC and the damage the Pantheon can provide, if I'm going for a 2v2 play top, I'm kind of favoring the Ambessa and the Pantheon in those early stages. So I think this definitely gets a little bit tough for SkewMond to try and have that set up. So it'll be more about trying to desync on the Wukong and find nice timings where you can affect that top lane without the Pantheon presence.
I wouldn't be surprised as well if it's start playing through mid, then use that pressure, use that push priority from the Ahri to get into other lanes, to look for 3v1 dives towards the top side. But MKOI yesterday showed how well they can deal with those dives. Jojo and Elyoya absolutely popping up in the semis versus Carmine Core. Let's get into it though. A battle for the finals of the LEC and for a spot in Vancouver, going all the way back to Canada for MSI.
One of the Canadians is going home. Either it's Dylan Falco or it's Jojo. They're going to get that trip. And I did hear Dylan say that, I mean, he definitely really wants to go home in the podcast. And he actually talks about how it would be awesome to have the opportunity to play against Jojo, because then they would have that opportunity to fight. And his wish has been granted. They're going to get that matchup. And I'm very excited to see how things play out. Level 1s have been a big deal this weekend in terms of control and making sure that, in particular, those early Raptors are not stolen away. You can see Alvaro hovering around as Labrov fishing for a hook.
Jojo, he's going to get hooked. He's going to get CC'd. There's the charm follow-up into the last embrace. It's just going to be damage, nothing more doing here from G2. Jojo forced back. With the minions just spawning, he can teleport back into the lane to be there in time, but if he does complete that recall, he'll be a little bit late to the first wave unless he expends the TP. Yeah,
it does mean though on the bottom side, like you end up starting with the W for Han Sama, you have the charm for Caps as well, so pushing power for both those lanes going to be removed quite a bit. And yes, you will be a little slow on getting back to lane here as Jojo, but because you don't have the Orb of Perception, that wave isn't going to be cleared out particularly quickly. So I think he's fine, as you see, to just waddle back and should be able to actually get the push at some stage or control over the lane because you started with the charm.
Gets there just in time for the first minions to die and still CS's it. So much ado about nothing for Jojo in that early push. In the other lanes, looks like Broken Blade is trying to get the advantage against Myrwn up towards the top side. Junglers pathing to opposite sides of the map. There is a ward on Elyoya's blue buff, so they know that he has not started there at least.
In terms of early prio, it looks like G2's in a great position. They've got that early push in the mid lane. Things will start to shift as Jojo gets a few levels under his belt, and I'd say around level 5, the wave control changes pretty dramatically in the Ryze versus Ahri matchup. Meanwhile, on the bot side of the map, there's not a lot that Smolder can do into this matchup, so MKOI's bot lane is going to have to play pretty defensively, and on the top side of the map, it looks like Broken Blade is getting that early push as well. So 3 pushing lanes for G2. At least in the early game, gives SkewMond a lot of freedom to do what he wants. Broken Blade will have to be cautious though, as Elyoya is pathing towards the top side of the map. There is that ward on his blue buff, which has now faded away.
I do like the way that SkewMond has kind of gone from this top to bot clear, trying to, as we were saying, like desync from Elyoya. Because on the reset then, you can get the bounce back off of that top side and actually look for some sort of plays, especially as Broken Blade will have access to his full kit at that stage. You can try and look for something. Even looking down now, just an early ward from Broken Blade just to make sure that he's going to be safe and spotted if Elyoya is going for any tricky business in the top lane.
Love the ping that also came out from SkewMond onto the walls, expecting Elyoya to be around here immediately. Broken Blade backs off his lane, he moves into the river, he drops that ward down so that he can spot any early ganks, and all of a sudden he lets the wave push back out. So good communication from the side of G2. As now, on the opposite side of the map, Elyoya likely communicating with his bot lane that SkewMond is in the area and may even be threatening a dive in the near future. But given the wave states, it looks like nothing too crazy is going to happen for now.
Yeah, it looks like it's just going to be a trade of the Scuttlecraft to kick us off. Labrov going in with the hook onto Alvaro, forces him away, uses that Riptide for a little bit of extra damage. Caps was forced back in mid lane, but Jojo is now relatively low on mana, so doesn't really have too much kill threat. Elyoya was looking for something, but just places a ward towards where the Razor Beaks will spawn and then backs away.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard when you do start the Charm in the early matchup, because traditionally you want to start with the Foxfire, use that to get your Electrocute proc alongside your auto attacks, but going for the Charm means you have to delay the Foxfire and the Orb of Deception, so a lot of your early trade patterns get nullified. So Jojo now getting to push back out and get some nice damage on the Caps, but I think it'll just be about trying to control this wave and look for a reset for himself.
Yeah, you can see Labrov coming across to try and cover him a little bit as well. Elyoya doing a good job of tracking him. Hook's going to land him onto Jojo. He's force low, 200 HP, has to flash, but Jojo's just dead. You knew Labrov was there! And he still gets hooked and he still dies!
Big whoopsie from Jojo. And a Charm from Caps just sets it all up. I thought maybe not getting hooked underneath the tower would have helped him to survive, but just too much damage between both Labrov and Caps.
I mean, nothing but a misplay there from Jojo. A degree of disrespect as he thought that, hey, I have all the kill threat here, Caps can't step up to me. But all it took, as you rightly said, was a single Charm to help First Blood go the way of G2. Jojo, he's not going to lose too much. The good news for him is Caps doesn't pick up the kill, and he's still able to TP back in time to hold on to a CS advantage, but a small gold swing going the way of G2 for now.
I mean, I think the bad news for him is this. Like, he has no summoners now, and the ability of Wukong just to gank that lane is going to become massive, especially when Caps dings over to 6 and gets that Spirit Rush up. So, you see a good trade coming out from the MKOI bot lane. Supa and Alvaro had a really good series yesterday up against Carmine Corp, and I actually think that Supa overall, probably the best AD carry so far in playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been doing a fantastic job, and like to echo what Guldborg was talking about yesterday on the desk, it feels like he's kind of become that late game insurance plan for MKOI. The Smolder obviously just giving that story more emphasis, but the fact that he kind of gets left to his own devices to try and be by himself, then start to scale up into the later portion of the game and just be a menace in team fights says a lot. But I think yesterday we saw a little bit of a different story where Alvaro and Supa felt much more like they were trying to play through a strong 2v2 against Kalist and Targamas and see if they could take over a bit there.
I just love it when players have those statement games, especially after things like the All-Pro comes out. He's the only MKOI player that wasn't a part of any of the top teams, and then he just has a performance like that. It just goes to show why the team believes in him and what he's capable of doing. We'll see if he can pull it off today, as right now he's grouped up with his jungler.
Oh, Alvaro's going to go in, hooked out of the knockup, but the chase continues onto Labrov. Last Embrace will get the CC onto Elyoya. Labrov with the Titan's Wrath, not enough shielding. Supa on the board for MKOI.
Huge pick by MKOI. You could see Jojo was basically keeping Caps and SkewMond entertained around that mid lane, baiting them to try and go for him, and just open up then for MKOI to pick off Labrov as he's trying to join in, because he'd also burnt his splash in that last engagement.
I will say, I think Labrov roaming around a little bit too much, I would say. The early lane dominance that we were seeing from Hans and Labrov has kind of now largely been conceded. They built about a wave of an advantage in the bot lane 2 versus 2, and you can see the experience differential that's now built up between Hans and Labrov. Of course, Labrov did get that kill in mid lane, but the consequences of that is now Supa finds himself with a small gold lead. And remember that while the Senna stacks are important, Supa's building stacks of his own.
Yep. Currently sitting at 42, 225 really the breakpoint that we look for on the Smolder. There are smaller breakpoints before that point, but 225 is when you start to get that mini Elder Dragon buff that allows you just to rip through team fights. So a bit of a weird quadra kill because of it earlier this morning in the LPL, where someone flashed away and just carried the Scorching Breath to his team. Gave him extra kills. I'm so sure Supa will be very happy.
It's a well-earned quadra.
Oh, 100%. Really well-earned. I'm sure Supa will be very happy if he gets one of those today. Labrov looking up towards this top side. Hans Summer and Labrov have been moved into mid because Grubs are spawning in 7 seconds time, and that's the reason Supa and Alvaro are up here in top, matching into Caps.
Yeah, you can see even Jojo's aware of it though. He's hovering very much to the bottom side of his lane, making sure that he doesn't want to get caught out by anyone. So I think this will just be conceding it for MKOI. Looks like Elyoya moving up here just to make sure he can get his top side jungle and keep his bottom lane safe in case any sort of funny business starts to move up towards his top side. Oh, maybe the late contest.
Jojo stepping in, one grub already down for G2. SkewMond trying to get forward to steal away another one with the smite. Elyoya will secure it. Cap's looking for a flank, but it's very easy to collapse on him. He is respecting the fact that Jojo and Elyoya can just jump in. Supa across the wall, sneezing on them, but not really landing any of those germs. And in the end, it will be 2 grubs to 1 in favor of G2.
Okay, so a gentleman's agreement as neither team tries to overforce anything. Level 6 unavailable for both supports meant that without that big CC, I imagine that they were both a little hesitant to fully commit to a fight. Of course, no significant leads gained either side as both AD carries are just happy to scale up. And one of the things I will say about Fearless, and we obviously bring this up especially as we find ourselves in these best of 5s, is we have such a diversification of AD carry styles now. It's not really a scaling AD carry meta or a hyper-aggressive one. You tend to get so much variation because you're forced to change up your AD carry pool.
And keep my eyes on Caps though. He's wandering down towards his bot lane, and there's a potential lockup from Broken Blade coming through, baiting Myrwn in a little bit here.
Jumps in, Broken Blade has that Hexagol made, and Myrwn dodges away from the charm. Dawning Shadow coming out though. Myrwn with a public execution is publicly executed. Grand Star fall in by Elyoya, will get one in response. So far a 1-for-1. Caps, another charm is going to connect. But Elyoya healthy enough to get underneath the tower. The question is, will G2 force a dive here with SkewMond and Labrov on their way across?
Alvaro's on the way as well, trying desperately to get in, but flash forward.
Cyclones gives you movement speed though, and Elyoya can't get away from SkewMond. Aegis Assault blocks the decimating smash or the crushing blow there from SkewMond. Alvaro joins the fray. Labrov looking to walk away. SkewMond, even with a Shadowing Strike coming out, he's ignited Magna Storm as well. SkewMond's gonna die here. Probably to the minions. It's Alvaro who claims the kill.
That's such a big turnaround for MKOI, because it's not only the fact that they got the kill in the bottom side, Jojo was pushing in that top lane and crashed a big wave into the top side turret, and because Broken Blade died in the exchange, he wasn't able to TP immediately up to that top side to pick it up. MKOI winning on both sides of the equation.
I very much agree, Dagda. We look back at the play and you saw it on the minimap. Caps looking to make this play that he's made with Broken Blade many times before. Attack the side lane, try and get Broken Blade back into the game a little bit more. He ends up being traded though as Elyoya throws the ultimate in, and it's at this point where G2 should have just been happy with the trade. But they think that they've gotten so much damage down onto Elyoya, it should be an easy pickup kill for SkewMond, and then they can turn their attention to the tower. But Elyoya plays it super well. He flashes away, he connects the stun, and then he has his E to help him get away to safety, allowing for the TP re-engage and a kill and exchange. And as you rightly said, Dagda, you look at the mini-map and you can see this Ryze just free farming in the top lane, picking up waves. I think he even picked up a plate as well. And so Jojo very happy with his current position.
Credit to Alvaro as well, not just giving up on that chase, knowing that Myrwn could TP in and they could go for the kill. Even with Labrov there wasn't really any way for SkewMond to get out. So it's about 1,000 gold ahead here for MKOI. First item complete on Supa and on Jojo, who's got that Rod of Ages stacking up.
But I think one of the things for MKOI has been how good they've actually been with their leads. It started obviously for a long time with them, but I think they've really improved over the course of this split on their patience, how they set up for picks, how they set up their vision, how they kind of corral teams into difficult choices on the map. And I think this is where you do start to get a little nervous as G2, because this is not an MKOI that will just make often a silly mistake, but might be a TP behind Jojo here.
Yeah, immediately looking for Jojo. Hexagol made him available to Broken Blade, the Realm War. Jojo's going to try and flash back into it, but the Hexagol made comes out, and Jojo cannot escape. Caps gets the kill, 1-0-2 now on his Ahri.
I do wonder if he messed up the timing there, because the timing of the flash, it seemed that he was a little bit late to actually get back into the ulti. Either way, it was a cool idea, and he doesn't quite get the execution off. G2 find themselves another pick, and again, it comes back to what we saw them doing a lot against Fnatic. These side lane TP plays, constantly punishing Oscar in particular, but trying to find picks to either get Caps gold or Broken Blade gold so that they can develop into these strong side lane threats.
As I said, they don't make silly mistakes regularly, and they don't kick off, but yeah.
He almost got out. I think I'd have to watch the replay again, because I did see a silence above his head as the Hexagol Maiden comes out, because it obviously stops you going through the Realm Warp.
Yeah.
because it's CC, right? So you can't leave the Hex Golden Maiden. But I'd have to see a replay to know for sure. Maybe it was just a mistiming error there from Jojo. Does burn his flash and burns his teleport to get back up towards the top lane. Oh, well, thank you, observers. Let's have a look.
So we get the lockdown coming through from Broken Blade, TP coming through from Caps, and then let's see as he starts to come through. No.
Yeah, silence.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Pops above Jojo's head. You can't escape the Hex Golden Maiden even with the Realm Warp because you're locked in the spot, right? So it's basically CC stopping the Realm Warp.
Yeah, but I thought there was a small window because it actually hadn't connected. But I guess the initial cast still actually prevents you from using it.
Let's be honest, the minutiae of it may escape us, but what happened is Jojo died.
Didn't escape.
I'm sure Vandrill is out there making a 10-minute long video on it right now. All that G2 care about is he died, and all that MKOI care about is they didn't pause it and report a bug.
That's true. Now, Herald is going to be spawning in about a minute's time. Of course, when you've got these two scaling AD carries, your first thought is not, let's try and force a fight immediately. They just want to continue scaling up. We learned from the Analyst desk earlier that a good average for Sennas in the current meta is about 60 at 20 minutes. Hans Sama seems very much on pace, 44 at 14 minutes into the game. Meanwhile, we look over at Supa, and he's at 106. So if we assume that 225 is that break point, he's also about just under halfway at about 14 minutes into the game. So it seems like both AD carries primarily just farming in the mid lane and kind of reaching that scaling point. And I mean, it's going to be a pretty interesting matchup because you've got these two hyper-scaling AD carries. I do want to give the slight edge to Hans Sama just because I think the range on Senna gets so monstrous, but I'm happy to be proven wrong and I'm excited to see what Supa can do.
I think it's just also the issue for G2 is how strong the side lanes for MKOI can be. Myrwn has been doing a relatively good job of kind of keeping pace with Broken Blade, but as you start to go on, it's Elyoya just having an option to ult into a side lane to help you out, and you've got lockdown from both Myrwn and also Jojo for that. So.
And we often talk about the ability to play through sides, and as you say, having the Realm Warp, having the Grand Starfall just gives you so many more options to play through sides than Caps, who has to run down a lane or TP towards it, and SkewMond, who can be very sneaky, can go invisible as he tries to gank, but can struggle to have as much impact on multiple portions of the map.
Now, I do just want to make clear to our audience at home that there is a bit of an overlay disconnect. The summoner spells that you see on your screen are coming off cooldown a little bit faster than they actually are in-game. Right now, Jojo is still about halfway with both his flash.
Labrov going in for the hook here. Charm's going to land as well onto Alvaro. Knocked up in the bouncy castle. Dawning Shadow coming out as well, and Alvaro's first fall in the fight. Elyoya on the retreat. Jojo on the back line, but he doesn't land the overload onto SkewMond, hooked out of the Realm Warp. Supa now stepping forward into the last embrace. He pops the barrier to heal to try and mitigate some of this damage, but he just can't do it. Cap still chases forward, and Elyoya through the flash still die.
G2 get everything they need in that fight, picking off all the members of MKOI, apart from Myrwn, who's just left in that bottom side of the map, hoping desperately his team could have fought a little bit harder in that one.
It's one of the risks of forcing these fights early, but it's G2 that end up coming out on top, navigating the fight beautifully. Hans Sama and his positioning was just ruthless. The instant cleanse that came out from him as well to then reset and continue to dish out damage. Caps getting an extra cast of his ultimate. Alvaro is hovering around. It looks like that there's not going to be another fight to kick this one off, but Alvaro getting caught at the start, not really having that good engage is what I think made things very difficult for MKOI.
I think it also, again, is just kind of showing the value of this Senna. You get this lockup in this little choke point, which kind of keeps Alvaro in position. Then you get the Dawning Shadow across so many members getting the damage and the shields off. And then you end up very separated as MKOI, as G2 are able to play the fight back and forth over the wall with SkewMond and Cap. So it ends up just being a very spread out fight. And that's not even to start on the conversation of, do you really have the damage on a Smolder right now to be taking fights like this?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Dagda. Just watching that center in that fight, Hans Sama felt completely untouchable. He got 2 roots off. He was healing. His shield also, like, he was just doing so much work for his team in that fight. And it was G2 that ends up coming out ahead. Now the Dragon is alive, and naturally G2 will set their sights on the objective. Jojo will have first move from the top side of the map. Want to make clear, his TP... Actually, I might be the one who's wrong. I am. His TP is up.
As is Caps, but doesn't look like MKOI are going to fight this because they got the second Drake. This isn't sole point or anything for G2, so they can delay. Infernal Dragon going over to G2. About a 3,000, 2,000 gold lead for them right now as Myrwn maybe caught out a little bit. SkewMond's on the chase. There's the Hex of Ultimatum to lock Myrwn up. SkewMond comes in. Public execution through the Cyclone goes unstoppable, but the chase continues and Broken Blade finds his man.
Yeah, a good pick from G2, but we might have an answer on the top side as Alvaro actually has to run away. Labrov with a good reset and move to the top side to keep Cap safe on the counterplay.
Now with the Herald coming down in bot lane, G2 looking to get their second tower of the game. MKOI unable to take one as of yet. Ooh, where are we driving? Okay, SkewMond. It's Monaco, the streets are narrow. Don't do an album and delay everyone behind you. Always going to mid. Picks up a Cinder. Okay, this is less exciting now.
He's got camps to clear and he's a man on a mission. He's set his sights on the Krugs. This window, MKOI used to get some deep vision, so they will spot SkewMond out, but ultimately it's G2 that's increasing the pace of the game. They built up just short of a 4k gold lead, and look at how strong Caps is right now. 2 fully completed items, a 2.2k gold lead individually over Jojo, and we talked about it coming into draft. The Analyst desk talked about it as well. Caps in playoffs form. He's a scary player, and in the side lane, he is going to be a serious threat that KOI will have to find a way to deal with.
I think that battle between Jojo and Caps was something we really wanted to focus on in this series because yesterday, Jojo really popped off. He had incredible plays on the Ahri, some great charms. His Elyoya was superb as well. And Caps, after having a very disappointing spring from his standards, began to show us that playoffs form again.
He's definitely been putting the hurt onto Jojo thus far. The early plays towards mid, making sure that Jojo very uncomfortable in that mid lane. And now he kind of gets to run the map. You can see he's already going for the reset, working up towards his third item. But I think in this sort of position, G2 just, it's so easy for them to continue with the pressure that they have on the map. Your side lanes are strong enough that you're not really worried about a 1v1 between Jojo and Caps. Same when you look at Broken Blade is now kind of starting to crest the 2 items, which is really where this Camille starts to come online. It kind of feels like MKOI have to find some way to make a pick to get control back of this game.
But they have the tools to do so. We've already talked about it. Realm Warp and the Grand Starfall, perfect tools to make picks in side lane. The issue becomes, if you don't control your own jungle, it's very hard to make those picks be surprise picks rather than picks that were tracked as you walk through your jungle. For the moment, G2 focusing a lot of pressure on getting this mid lane tower down. They're also looking to make sure that Broken Blade can step up safely and push out those waves on the bot side. Artican actually just begun here by them. MKOI either unaware or unfazed by the fact G2 want to take this.
Seems that they are a bit of both, perhaps. They don't really have much vision on that side of the map, but their priorities are on securing what towers they can, getting a bit of map control back in their favor. Alvaro going to be hovering around the top side. Caps needs to be careful because there are a large number of MKOI members on the top side of the map, and that tower will be secured.
You have to be so careful there as G2 moving into that top side, because either you try and make the play onto Jojo and suddenly you can have the Grand Starfall towards him, or you can have the Realm Warp from Jojo in towards Elyoya, who was kind of fishing for Labrov a little bit in that top side jungle. But honestly, if you're G2, you're going to be more than happy. Picking up that early Artican is fantastic for you, let alone now a minute and a half until you get that next objective coming through. You're seeing, you know, Black Cleaver's now completed for Hansama. He's going to be an absolute menace. Caps is huge. Like, it's really difficult for MKOI, it feels like, to fight at the moment, because yes, Smolder's hitting that 225 spot, but he just doesn't really have the items to be a massive menace in these fights yet.
Hook's going to land. Jojopyun immediately walking out. Elyoya's caught up in the midst of 4 members of G2, and he is slain. G2 with good vision control. Catch Elyoya wanting in his own jungle. Jojo puts some damage back into SkewMond, but at the moment, G2 just run the map.
It feels as though KOI, I mean, they feel very invisible right now. G2 is the one. Ooh.
Magnustorm goes in. Supa's on his way across here as well. Supa's going to start sneezing on them. Flashes forward, looking for Labrov here as well. Realm Warp coming out as Alvaro and Supa will follow it. Caps though has the Spirit Rush. Flash Room Prison. Can Caps get away? No, pull back. MKOI find 2.
This is the play we wanted to see from MKOI. A fantastic engage from Alvaro. Connects onto 4 members of G2, and it gives KOI an opportunity to force a fight. Supa picks up a bunch of kills. Jojo gets one for himself. and they just barely keep that. Oh, never mind. MKOI though with a fantastic fight.
Huge fight for MKOI, and exactly what they needed, and to get a ton of gold on 2 key carries right before this upcoming fight as well. But great engage from Alvaro. The flash forward sets up perfectly. Jojo there to follow. Then the slow across multiple people as well here was just huge. And again, the realm warp usage from Jojo setting up then to pick off caps as well. And now it's back to live, as you can see in the bottom left corner. Dragon going to be picked up here by MKOI thanks to that great engagement.
SkewMond doesn't have the Cyclone, and no flash on him or caps would make it very difficult for them to fight around this Drake. It will be 2 apiece in terms of the Wyverns between these two teams. Only 1,000 gold in it now. And the question for G2 is this the turning of the tide?
Well, I think the fact that Supa got so many of those kills was actually huge, because we were kind of saying, look, you're 2 items. It's a little bit tougher, the Smolder right now, but now you're accelerating to that rapid fire cannon, and suddenly it's a very different story, because you're going to be able to hit from so much further away. Your attack speed's insane. So honestly, I think that gold shift towards Supa may have been just kind of that, maybe not full break in the momentum of G2, but certainly going to cause them to stumble a little bit at these upcoming fights.
The thing that I've wanted to see more of from KOI in this game is that side lane power that they have. The fact that they have a Ryze and a Pantheon, and they've not really been looking for picks in the side lane, I think is not how you should be utilizing this composition. But the one thing you can't underestimate KOI in is their ability to find fights. Alvaro is such a fantastic engaged player, and he's someone that will not miss those windows to find a fight for his team, and this might be another one.
TP behind here as Myrwn's going deep. Broken Blade trying to trade with Jojo, as Labrov is the one who's caught out first. Summer next up. Alvaro going a little bit deep as Caps. TP is behind them, and MKOI are fighting a 3v4, and Caps is here to surprise them. G2 find 3 already. Myrwn trying to get his way out of here. Broken Blade still chasing forward. Myrwn had to flash the charm. Does not connect from Caps, but G2 will continue the pressure. Last embrace in. Jojo turns it around. Myrwn dives in with a public execution. Might be able to kill Labrov as well. Can't quite. G2 find 5 for 1.
MKOI thought they had the jump, but they were just a bit too far away. G2 collapse faster, and they get the kills they need.
Just as I was praising KOI's ability to find fights, they find a fight that they ultimately didn't want. You guys already highlighted that they didn't quite have the numbers, and G2 could just collapse faster. The TP comes in, but it's so far away, and this is just a 3v3 to start. G2 weathered the initial engage, and then Caps arrives, turning it into a favorable fight.
Yeah, I noticed the fact that Broken Blade is able to 1v1 Jojo just completely takes him out. You're still waiting on Myrwn to show up, so G2 decimate the 3-man unit of MKOI that's there. And now this is a little bit of an over extension from Caps, but I think it ends up working out because you get those kills that you need, and it means that with those deaths on the MKOI side, you manage to crack that bottom turret as well.
Take the inhibitor tower down. SkewMond jumping in there with the decoy to try and see if he could steal away the blue. It's now a 5,000 gold lead for G2. Baron is up 2.5 minutes before the Infernal Drake would be the 3rd for either of these two teams. Supa well over the 225 threshold, almost cusping 250 now. Summer did hit 60 before the 20-minute mark, now at 84. Remember, every 20 stacks on the Senna gives you another bonus.
G2 in a commanding position right now. The Baron going to be their main focus as they leave Broken Blade off in the side lane.
Who deals with him now?
Well, I mean, it's funny to think that Broken Blade played the opposite side of this matchup, and before it was all those resources that he was getting from SkewMond to shut down the Camille. This is what the matchup looks like when you get given all those resources. Alvaro, he's hesitant, he gets charmed.
Charmed through the wall. Alvaro pulled back, good shadowing strike. Jumps in with Magna, Storm Dawn, a shadow out there for the shield as well. Myrwn dives onto the back line, and Summer's already dead. Labrov follows suit. Supa's found 2, he's looking to make it 3. And SkewMond's next on the menu. Jojo will secure that one, but the Hexagon Momentum from Broken Blade chases Supa through his flash over the wall. In the end, a 3 for 2.
I mean, it looks like a good engage from G2, but Alvaro uses it as an opportunity to force a fight. MKOI are very quick to react, and taking out G2's bot lane would have been disaster for them if it weren't for Broken Blade being able to trade it for Supa. A very close fight ends up just barely going in MKOI's favor.
And I love the snap decision from Alvaro, because you've got so much damage from Supa in these clumped up engagements, like the ultimate, the follow with the Q is going to do a ton of work, but just the fact that you end up with Broken Blade being able to get access towards Supa here is huge. Plus, Myrwn getting locked up by SkewMond for a good amount means that he's just not really able to follow. Caps is putting a ton of pressure down, and the speed that Broken Blade has in these fights to avoid that follow-up from MKOI is great.
Yeah, I was going to say the follow-up from Myrwn there, I didn't notice it in the initial fight, but the fact that he ulted straight onto Hansama into the backline, just really good target selection from him. It ends up being awkward when he's now stuck in the middle of the G2 roster, but he made it work and kind of what set things up for success for MKOI. The gold, of course, still in favor of G2, but KOI showing that they still have some of the bite of the old Lions. The ability to fight back is something that they've demonstrated extremely well so far in this playoffs. And I definitely don't think this game is over just yet.
Yeah, and Myrwn has definitely gone for this build, which is, hey, I want to try and one-shot Hansama or one-shot someone that has that or is on the back line.
Flash hook onto Alvaro. Goes in with the Magna Storm. Hansama immediately flashes away. Mom's called down. Broken Blade chasing. Super out of the back of the fight, but there's good stun onto him from Elyoya. Super still down. Caps now dancing forward. Broken Blade will fall. Jojo gets the massive shutdown from that, but it might be too little too late. It's a triple for SkewMond. Only Myrwn left alive. G2 wipe him away.
There's just not enough on MKOI to stop the dive from G2. Broken Blade, SkewMond and Caps have one target in sight, and it's Supa.
I mean, look at how ruthless they are. They find out where Supa is. First, Hansama flashes away to safety, then Broken Blade says, I found Supa, let's go. The ulti comes in from Hansama. Caps and SkewMond are right behind Broken Blade, and then it just becomes a clean-up fight. They end up losing Broken Blade, but the trade is worth it as they find themselves an ace and a Baron.
And now they're pushing forward for another inhibitor tower. It's Caps on his lonesome. The rest of G2 are back in base, apart from Hansama, who's just clearing out some vision around mid, it seems. Second inhibitor tower down, 21 kills to 11. It's a 32 kill game in 29 minutes. G2 in the regular season, average combined kills a minute of about 0.6 or so. In playoffs, they're averaging 1 combined kill a minute across their 2 series so far. Obviously, whatever practice they were doing during the regular season that Dylan Falco talked about is coming to the fore right now. MKOI, no slouches themselves, but in this game, just seem to have struggled to find too much purchase.
I think it's just been great. Like, the way G2 have set things up has been great. Caps with that early play towards mid, shutting down Jojo, and we've kind of talked about how the Pantheon Ryze was one of the big combos that we were looking at, so being able to disrupt that, put Jojo behind, stop him from being able to interact on either of the side lanes has really just set G2 up for success. And again, I think just Senna with these bruiser dive compositions just works so incredibly well at keeping these bruisers alive no matter how deep they go into a fight.
I think what's cool about the G2 composition is how well this Senna supports the sheer amount of dive that they have. That ultimate being able to provide that shield, potentially that extra bit of damage as well, as you've got SkewMond, Caps and Broken Blade just finding their way into the backline. And how obnoxious is it to deal with? You've got Broken Blade that can jump over walls, you've got Caps who can jump over walls, and you've got SkewMond who can also jump over walls. Like, there's very few obstacles that really stand in their way.
Right now, G2 pushing in 3 different lanes. Caps is up in the top side. Broken Blade will be stopped by Myrwn down towards that bottom side. Remember, no inhibitor tower down there. Inhibitor in the mid lane will fall as Caps uses the minions to take the inhib tower in top. Inhib in bot falls, and MKOI getting down to the last dregs of hope in this game. Really have to force an engage at some point.
Yeah, I think it's just becoming too difficult. They can try with some of the wave clear, but barred up, it makes it very, very difficult, and you still got another 2 waves that are going to come barreling through before you can even deal with them. So I think at this stage, it's just going to be a rogue charm that might catch out MKOI and end it all.
Baron buff on the minions down towards the bot side. Super minion about where the tier 1 would usually stand in mid. G2 might use that as their chance to push forward. Baron expiring after this wave. They have 30 seconds left before that Baron buff does go down. Obviously double super minions in the next few waves as Caps goes in with the Spirit Rush, lands the charm only onto Elyoya. Doesn't get much out of it. Was looking for Jojo. Doesn't have his flash right now. Hook's going to go in. Jojo puts some big damage down onto Caps, but he's able to Spirit Rush away. Alvaro already down, and now G2 trying to push in with a man advantage. The Nexus Tower is their target. Broken Blade steps in with that precision protocol. Does so much damage to the tower. No minions left for G2, though. Another hook going in from Labrov, but immediately he's burst down. A 4 for 4 now as MKOI hold on to their base. Or at least their Nexus Towers. Caps looking for another charm. G2 will retreat.
Elyoya had the ultimate if he wanted to follow, but I think he would have left Supa a little bit on his lonesome if that was the case. Although, still wandering into his jungle, needs to be a little careful.
G2 I mean, it's understandable that they would just continue to pressure on the enemy Nexus. There's no objective on the map for them really to play for. They know that they have the numbers advantage, and all they really needed was Caps to connect onto a charm, and that first charm follow-up meant that they were able to get that one pick, but then Labrov didn't quite connect the hook, forcing them to go back to base. So now MKOI get given one more opportunity, one more breath of life to find a fight that could potentially swing the game in their favor. Itemization-wise, the carries are in a great spot. If they can just lock down Hansama, maybe Caps. I mean, I wonder if it's really enough when you've got 4 damage threats on the side of G2, but really that's kind of your only hope.
I do think, though, the Seeker's arm guard for Supa is going to be huge. It's so much dive from G2 that you alluded through. Even if they manage to jump over all those walls that he's golden, it'll help him survive that little bit longer. And maybe MKOI can mount some sort of defense. Barrier and flash available for him too, means that he can try and reposition, but TP from Broken Blade to the bottom side, that's a GA finish for him. So there's still a huge amount that you have to try and get through on the G2 side.
Supa's got about 30 stacks in the last few moments on this Smolder. It's going to do a huge amount of damage. You can see Hansama getting chipped a little bit. Jojo flashing forward. Hans with the cleanse. Hook coming out from the block to stop the Magnet Storm. SkewMond now chasing onto Jojo, but he has the Savage Shield. Is it enough? Not quite. Cap's already got a double as Supa, Elyoya, and Myrwn retreat to the safety of their Nexus towers, but I'm not sure they'll be safe for much longer. Broken Blade flashes in. Myrwn caught out. Broken Blade still has that GA. Caps will get another. Grand Starfall back in from Elyoya. Supa pops the Seekers on his fountain, just trying to survive. He'll take out Caps, but now he's looking at a 1v4, and even he can't stand against it. G2 will open up the series 1-0.
An overall convincing game 1 from G2. I think what really set them up for success was the utilization of the TPs from Caps and Broken Blade and getting their 2 solo laners ahead. Good use of the side lanes, and we'll see how things change as we go to a quick break. Make sure you don't go anywhere.